a very special guest here today.
Thank you.
Our regular Pastor Younis.
Thank you, Mike.
So we're going to do things a little bit differently today. We're going to have like an interview style sermon.
Right.
And Younis is going to talk to us about his life and his life with Jesus. So tell us a little bit about your background. Who are you? Where do you come from?
Thank you, Mike. I've been pastor here for Garden City Fellowship for the last couple of years. But sometimes, you are together, but we don't know about each other. So I thought that why not just share with you who I really am, where I come from. So I come from Pakistan. I grew up in Pakistan in a family of seven children. We were seven siblings, and I'm the second last in the number. My mom and dad, they weren't really educated, but they belonged to Catholic sort of background. And as you know, Pakistan is dominantly a Muslim country. So I grew up in such a place where to be a Christian is not easiest thing. Nowadays things are probably slightly different than they were a couple of years ago when I was growing up.
So your parents were Christians?
Yes, they were Christians, but as you go back into number of generations, they were Muslims, and then slowly, gradually, we came to know Christ. And I think my great grandfather, my father's father, he was Punjabi and so forth. So I really don't know too much about, before that. So that's where I come from. Grew up in a very poor family. Didn't really have a lot. It was very much day-to-day struggle. But God had different plans.
So what brought you to New Zealand?
Well, I can share with you how I ended up in New Zealand, but there are a few other things, if you allow me to share. I can share my life before Jesus, because even though I grew up in a Catholic family, my mom and dad, they were very much nominal Christians. They didn't go much to church. I do remember going here and then with my mom to church. I also remember my mom, when I was very young, she took me and we were standing in a line. I was in her arms, and I think one of the fathers from Catholic Church, he was just walking by and sprinkling water on children and baptizing them, and I had a shock of my life when he just sprinkled very cold water on my face. I do remember that, but other than that, my mom and dad, because they weren't that educated, they really didn't go to church. And I grew up in that type of context. As I was going to high school, I remember getting into trouble. I got into cricket. I love that sport. And apparently I was so passionate about that I would go in the morning sometimes and come back in the evening. Whole day you would be playing cricket out there on the streets. Really, really passionate. I wanted to be a cricketer. And then also, even though I grew up in a poor family, and we had very limited funds to, live by, still every now and then when I would get pocket money, I got into gambling, and it was sort of very at a lower level because didn't have much money. I wonder if I had more money, what would I have done with that? But even with that small money, like the way we used to do, we didn't go to casinos. It was very much, we invented gambling as young people. So we played with those marbles. We would have like 100 marbles, and then from that 100 you would pick some and you will just bring it, and you'll ask the other person to guess, and then you would bet on that okay, I'll give you $5 if you have guessed it right, and if you haven't guessed it right, you'll give me $5. So that's how we played gambling, and at times really got into trouble. My life before Jesus, when I was young, I got into smoking as well, peer pressure. I remember, going with young friends, and in the islands they call it betel nut, that reddish stuff. We call it in Pakistan pan. It's some sort of, I don't really have a word to say, but it's very addictive thing. And I got into that. It was more of a trendy thing for young people. You would have that in your mouth and you're chewing it away, and then you will have the cigarette in your hand, and then you're smoking and blowing, and the smoke is, the more smoke you could make, you were the champion. And if you could get that smoke out of your nostrils, you were just amazing. So I got into those things, really very much into Bollywood movies, whatever little money I would get, and then some of our friends, we would put all the money together. I don't know if you remember those days when you had to go and hire, those VCR, and we didn't have color TV at home, so we would go and hire a VCR deck and then color TV, and we would be putting that on our shoulders and would bring it, and whole night we'll watch movies, and next day we'll go and return it, because we had paid the money, so we had to really get much out of that money and be awake whole night. And next day when you would wake up, you look like zombie, basically, because you watched so many movies through the night. So I got into all of that stuff, and just to give you some idea about my life before I really met Jesus.
Yeah, it's totally new to most people here, I think.
Yeah.
Your background. So how did you meet Jesus? How did Jesus come into your life? Because you said you were brought up as a Christian.
Yeah. There's one thing I can recall, Mike, that really I can pin down on that helped me to have that connection with Jesus or fall in love with him, and that is loving parents. Even though they didn't really go to church, but still they never stopped us from exploring different things. And I remember my dad, he was a very prayerful person. At home, he had this habit of praying so loud that even neighbors, if they're sleeping, they would wake up. He would wake up so early in the morning, and I remember we would be sleeping still, and he's just standing in our courtyard, and he's praying so loudly. And at times I would say, Dad, you can pray, but don't have to disturb other people. So now today when I look back, I would say I knew at that time that was rubbing on me in one way or the other, that he was such a prayerful man, even though he didn't go to church, but he would wake up early in the morning, he would go for a run, exercise, and then pray, and then very hardworking man. So the other factor I would say that really helped me to get to know Jesus was my brothers and sisters. I remember my brother going to Adventist school, who also encouraged us to go to Adventist school, and he also went to one of the Adventist churches as well. And he also pulled us into that too. Then the third thing I would say that guided me to fall in love with Jesus is my friends. As you can see, before I fell in love with the Lord, I had friends, man, who were into all sorts of stuff. I still remember when I was into gambling and smoking, my eldest brother, once he caught us in action. Like I and a few other friends, and he literally dragged me home, and I had good beating that day. He really was very harsh. And I can't remember after that I ever played that again. It was really so bad that I couldn't really walk properly for next couple of days.
Wow.
So after that, as I look back, I could say that God really helped me that slowly some of those friends who were into that stuff, they just fell away. And then God placed me in a group of people. One of the friends, his name is Rafaqat. We were really good friends. He was very much into Bible study. He loved studying God's Word. He would be in his house, young man, and he would be reading Bible literally whole afternoon. And I really used to admire. And just to tell you more, that today actually he's married to my sister. Little I knew that, yes, he was into reading Bible, but then he was also trying to get my sister. And I'm so happy that my sister married him. So I became part of those people. Then there was another friend, his name is Petrus. Three of us, I remember, we used to sit and study the book of Daniel and Revelation and really dig into it and study and ask questions each other. So God placed me in a group of people who would enhance that relationship. That's how I came to know about Jesus as well. And the other thing that really helped me was that I started attending Adventist school. That's where I came to know a bit more about Adventism as well, and then learned what the truth is all about. And the last one, which is really most important, I come from the era where missionaries were working in Pakistan. We had missionaries from Croatia, we had missionaries from Finland, we had missionaries from Thailand. They would come and they would work in Pakistan Adventist Seminary, one of the Adventist campus in Pakistan. And I was studying there. And because I came from a very poor family, I started working as a gardener for Pastor Harry Kohalampi. His wife's name was Erja. They were from Finland. A very godly person. And I started working with him as a gardener. I used to plant vegetables for him and do gardening, and then he helped me with my fee. But then there came a time when they had to go back to Finland. And I remember he took me to another family, which is Branimir and Daniela Schubert. Originally, they were from Croatia. And obviously, they moved to Australia, and that's where they came from to Pakistan to work as missionaries. So Harry Kohalampi introduced me to them, and I remember the day when they took me. They were sitting on the other side of the table, and Harry and we were on the other side, and Harry was saying that I really like this young man. He is very hardworking. Would you be happy to have him as gardener, because we are going away, so he really needs support. Little I knew that journey which I was about to start with them was going to continue to this day. Actually, they're coming to visit us in, I think, next few weeks. Our relationship grew to the extent that they had me as their adopted son.
Wow.
They couldn't really legally adopt me because I was overage, but they always treated me as one. And if you can recall September 9/11, that happened, and at that time I was studying in college. I was doing ministry, but they had to run away for their, it was not really safe for them, so they went from there to Papua New Guinea. And I was left there. Obviously, by then I was almost about to finish my degree, and then after that I would have started working as a pastor, or who knows if I would have got a job or not. But then when they left and they went to Papua New Guinea, that is the time when I'm still falling in love with Jesus. I'm doing ministry. By the way, when I finished my high school, I really scored high when I did we call it metric exams. I could have chosen the path of going into science or medicine. So there were a number of options open for me, and I chose to be a pastor. And in my country, my family, they were saying, you scored so high, why would you choose to be a pastor? Pastorship is not for those people who are bright. If you don't, if you don't have any choice or anything, you can end up being a pastor. Just read the Bible and that's all you need. I said, well, God needs the best too. I said, I'm going to do ministry. One of my brother, I remember, he wasn't that happy. He said, well, it's up to you. You could do business. You could do, nursing. That's one of the top class you would call field or career people choose, most of them. So I chose to be a pastor, and I was about to finish, and Branimir and Daniela, they went to Papua New Guinea. And at that time, God was into something bigger. I didn't know that. God placed in my heart this dream that you are not created, you are not designed to serve just one local small community. I have created you to travel the world. I have created to witness to many. I've created you to serve many and lead many to Jesus. But when I look back into my background, my family, we had very little. I was basically paying my fee and the fee of my sister from gardening, and Daniela and Branimir, they were the one who were paying our school fee. I had no money to dream, to fulfill dreams like that. Well, just to cut the long story short, they were in Papua New Guinea and they said, well, we are happy for you to come here, but you'll have to raise your own airfares. When you are here, then we can help you. And that was the beginning of really to see who Jesus is. Yes, I believed in him. Yes, I did get baptized by this time. But I really didn't experience that he's mighty and he's able to fulfill the dreams that he gives us. And I had nothing basically. So I said, well, this is a very good way of saying that, sorry, we can't really help you. When they said that you have to raise your own airfare. So it was almost at that time about $1,200 or something like that. And think about $1,000 if you had translated that into Pakistani rupees, you're talking about like hundreds of thousands of rupees in that currency. And that was just impossible. So, as always, I'm very optimistic. You know me as a pastor. I never worry about how much money we've got. You just need to dream. And I went into the library and I looked at a number of magazines. There was this ministry magazine. And at that time, they used to give their email addresses. When people wrote their articles, they would put their email addresses. And I said, why not pick these email addresses, write my story, and send my story to those people and tell them that I'm needing some money. This is the dream I have, and I'm wanting to go overseas so that I can study. And guess what? I didn't know the people. The money started coming in. And by the end of it, I actually ended up raising funds, which was, I think it was somewhere over than $1,200, because I remember after even buying the ticket, I still had about $200 to $300 left as a pocket money for me to travel.
Wow.
So that was the beginning of that. Okay, God, you gave me the dream.
He provides.
Now you have to provide for it, and he did. The next thing was the visa. I grew up in a family, we had no idea about how you apply for visas, what documents you need, and so forth. It's a long story, but I'm going to be very quick. So at that time, people don't know where Papua New Guinea is. That's where they were working. Daniela and Branimir, they were lecturing at Papua New Guinea in one of the universities, a Pacific Adventist University. And they said, well, you have to get the visa now. And I contacted a number of places. I contacted Australian Embassy, and I had to be in Papua New Guinea by March. And I was still hunting around, looking for a place where I could get visa. And I would say it was almost like February. It was almost about a few weeks before I had to actually leave. So I went to one of the ticketing agents. You remember those days when you went into the office and you bought those tickets, long tickets, and they would cut it out for you, and then you had to go through that? So I went to one Muslim guy. His name was Khurshid. He issued ticket for me, and I didn't even have the visa. And usually those people, they wouldn't give you ticket unless you have a visa for the place where you're traveling. And he was a very interesting guy. I remember his words to this day. He said, Younis, what I believe is that if Allah, because he was Muslim, he said, if Allah wants you in Papua New Guinea, there is no force in the universe that can stop you. I said, okay, that's quite interesting. So he sold the ticket, he got the money, all right? I don't know whether he was saying because he wanted to sell the ticket or whether he was saying that he really believed what he was saying. So I went with that. I went to the airport. As I entered the airport, the first thing is, because it's a heavily guarded place in Pakistan, and the first entry place is guards, they asked me, for the documents, they would check your documents, and one of the guy, he asked me, okay, give us your passport, and he flicked through the pages, and he asked, where's your visa? He said, I said to him, I've got some documents. So I took some documents out. I had faxed documents from the university in Papua New Guinea, this almost like registration documents. I said, these are the documents I'm traveling with. And I will pick visa from the Philippines. They said, that's not how it works. Son, you need to have at least visa for the Philippines, a transit visa, so that you can travel to Philippines, you pick the visa, and then you travel to Papua New Guinea. I said, but that's all they explained to me. They said, well, good luck to you. I went to then check-in counter, and obviously they check again the documents. They asked me for my passport. And the guy, he's just flicking through the pages. He couldn't find the visa because I never had the visa. And he said, where's your visa? You are here to check in, but where are you going? And I had to repeat the same story. And he said, sorry, son, you can't go. We'll have to just send you back. You go and get visa for the Philippines, and then you can go and pick visa for Papua New Guinea and then you travel from the Philippines to Papua New Guinea. And right there, I was, they were telling me to just go home. And almost when I was about to walk away, there was one guy, he was the captain, I think he was the captain of the flight for Cathay Pacific. I saw him walking. And the day before I was in the airport, my brother and I, we had gone to Cathay Pacific office, and this guy was there. And I was talking away in English. At that time, it's a little bit better now. At that time, it was worse than what I have now. But still, in Pakistan, that was just awesome that I could speak in English. And I was explaining to him that, I was there in Cathay Pacific office just to confirm that everything is on schedule, flight is on time, because I was traveling the day after. And that guy is just walking at the airport towards me, and I just walked to him as if I know this man, for months. I just went and just saw him in the office. And I said to him, this guy is not letting me in. He's not checking in my luggage. And I just shared with him the story. And the guy was not checking me in. He said to the captain that we can't take this risk because just a few days ago, there was a guy, we checked him in, and then he just disappeared in Hong Kong. And Cathay Pacific was charged with heavy fines because we just allowed that to happen. So we can't take that risk again. This guy looked at me, this captain looked at me, and then he looked at that guy who wasn't checking me in. He said, don't worry, this guy looks very innocent. He's good man. I don't think, you just check him in, and if the immigration lets him in, good. If not, then we'll send his luggage back. So you just check him in, because then after that I had to pass through the immigration, customs, So he said, it's not our problem, it's customs problem. We'll just check him in.
Pass the back.
So now you can see second stage is done. And then now I had to go through the customs. I got into the line. I don't have visa. Right in front of me, there was father and son. They were standing, and just in a few minutes' time, there was police. They came. And right in front of me, they handcuffed them, and because they had forged their visas.
Whoa.
And you can almost imagine what was happening to me. I was so shaking, my legs were shaking, and I was thinking, man, at least they had something in the passport. I don't even have anything, and what are they going to do to me? Because they handcuffed them and they've taken, and I don't have anything in my passport. And even the documents that I have, they were fax documents. Anybody can create fax documents or photocopied stuff. They weren't even original. I had made a number of copies of those documents. So for me, original was the first copy that I received, and I have made copies of that. And I said, here's the copy, and then the original is in the bag. That's how I understood things at that time. Well, I came to the counter. Customs officer, he said, all right, can we have your documents? He started the same trick again. He looked through the passport, flicking through the pages. I just stood there, didn't say a word. I didn't know what to say. And he said, son, where is your visa? How come you are here? I said, repeated the same story. I've got the documents in my bag, and here's the copy. And I will pick my visa from the Philippines, and then I'm going to Papua New Guinea. And he said, it doesn't work like that. Go home, apply for visa for the Philippines, and then go to the Philippines, get your visa for Papua New Guinea, and travel to Papua New Guinea. That's how it works. So you'll have to go away now. Get out of the line. I just think about it that, I was learning about who God is. And that's the way how God was teaching me that I own the universe. I own everything in the world. Well, I got out of the line, and I remember literally right in the middle of the airport, got on my knees, and I said, Lord, you brought me here. You got me through 2 stages, and this is the final stage. You need to get me through this. I am not going home. You gave me the dream. You provided the money. My parents have got me here. And in Pakistan, it's such a big thing for parents that their child is going overseas. And if I go back, what an embarrassment for them. That it was all a drama, nothing was real. I'm not going out of this airport. God, you have to do something. I was in tears. As soon as I opened my eyes, I looked back, and that customs officer was changed. There was another person who was sitting at the counter. And guess what? I got into the line again. I got into the line again, thinking that, okay, well, let's see. It's a different person. Let's try. So I got into the line. My turn came. And again, the guy started the same drill. And by then, the captain of Cathay Pacific, he came. He's right there, and he's talking to this customs officer, and he's telling him to hurry up. Our flight is getting late. You need to hurry up. Send these guys in, because otherwise we'll be, behind our schedule. And they literally both started fighting with each other. They were angry at each other. They were abusing verbally. And I'm standing there looking at their faces. And this captain guy, he knows me. And and I'm thinking, man, this immigration or customs officer is going to be so upset and angry. Like if there was any chance before, now it's gone. Because he's so upset that I may end up in jail, actually. So while they were fighting and abusing each other verbally, he just takes this deep sigh. He looks at me, looks at the passport, and he says, go. That's it.
The customs officer let you through.
That's it. He sent me in.
And he gave up.
That's it. Probably he was so angry he didn't. And I just, to this day, I just wonder how God could make it work. How God made it work. Because in the real world, it's impossible. Coming through the right channels without visa is impossible. And I'll tell you later how it happened after that. Because I went into inside, I went and I sat in the airplane, and I managed to inform my parents that I'm in and I'm going away now. I landed in the Philippines, and as soon as I came, and you have to go to the customs, and that's where the real trouble started. God said, well, I've got you there, now it's your problem. So it was almost like God said, okay, now I'll just take a step back. Now you experience the real world. So while they were checking through my passport, man, Filipino police were all around me. They just couldn't figure out how on earth I have ended up in the airport without
no visa. Yeah.
They looked at my documents. They said, these are faxed documents. And you've copied the fax documents. Anybody can create those documents. How did you end up here? They said, we'll have to schedule your flight back. They locked me into a room, and I was there in that room, and I was thinking, my God, what you're up to with me now? I'm here, I have no one here, and they're gonna send me back home. I don't want to go home. I have never come out to be going back. So at that time, there was one man who was lecturing in Adventist International University. He contacted, or Branimir contacted him and told him that somehow Younis has made it to the Philippines. And now, can you help us by going to the airport? They will, Branimir told Lester Merklin, that they will never let Younis out of the airport. That's impossible. It's a miracle that Younis got out of Pakistan without visa, but in the Philippines, that's not going to happen. So is it possible, Merklin, if you can get his passport and just take it to Papua New Guinea embassy, and if they can stamp visa into that, so Younis doesn't have to leave the airport. Well, while this was all happening, my flight to Papua New Guinea got canceled. I think it got canceled, or I missed it. And finally, Lester Merklin, he managed to get my passport and took it to Papua New Guinea embassy. I think I applied for a year, and guess what? God blessed me with 3 years visa, the stamped visa in the passport. Now, good bit is starting. I got 3-year visa, and then because I had missed the flight, they sent me through Singapore. And when I arrived in Singapore, in those days, airlines, they were very good to their customers. They just treated them like kings and queens. Those days were good. And so because the flight from Singapore to Papua New Guinea got canceled, and they had only one flight in a week, airline basically treated me like a king, and they gave me one really spacious room. It was a transit hotel in Singapore. And I had this big, massive room to myself. I grew up in a very poor family. There was this coffee jug with the black water in it. I had no idea what that was. Right. We didn't have those big, massive beds, mattress. We had those hard weaved beds that we would sleep on. And the day I remember I walked into that room, I climbed onto that bed, and I was jumping like trampoline, onto that bed. I was thinking, man, that's quite fluffy.
Yeah.
I was jumping on it. And because it was such a massive change, I went to the swimming pool, because in Singapore airport, they have swimming pools in the airport as well. And, cultural shock, because in Pakistan, ladies are covered, whole body is covered. And in Singapore, in that, swimming pool, you have ladies in their swimsuits. And I'm thinking, what on earth is happening here? Then I went, and there was free internet, and they had those speakers, and I was playing Pakistani music so loud that somebody came and told me off that you don't do those things. I was really, somebody who came from jungle probably, who had no idea about those things. Well, finally ended up in Papua New Guinea. And that's how my journey started. From Papua New Guinea, I went to the Philippines. I studied in Papua New Guinea, and then I went to the Philippines, did my master's. And then from the Philippines, I came to Fiji. I was lecturing at Fulton College. And then from Fiji, I came to New Zealand.
Wow.
So,
And here we've got him here, at last.
so as you can see, how God led me and how I fell in love with Him. It was through these massive, miraculous providences He showed me who He is. In real world, those things are impossible to happen, and God did those impossible things in my life. And I met actually Romina as well in Papua New Guinea, and we got married in the Philippines. And now we have our child here in New Zealand. You have seen Avishai. So the journey is still continuing on.
And that's a whole nother story.
Yes.
About having Avishai.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The journey is still continuing on. And my strength today, I would say, Mike, is that my Lord, He died for me. And He has done so much for me that I have to live my life for Him.
So how is your life different now to before you actually had a relationship with God?
Well, definitely I've learned so much. God has provided definitely way more than I ever even dreamed of. And today we have a house, I have a family, I'm a married man, and financially we are able to even help my parents back home. And
So you can afford your gambling now?
No, I would never do that because I've given up. By the way, I gave up cricket in the process as well when I fell in love with the Lord, because most of the games, they happened on Sabbath. I had to give that passion away. I gave up on gambling. I gave up on many things that before I enjoyed, like smoking. I was into that red stuff that you take, and it just turns your mouth into like you're drinking blood.
But your life now, is it better that
I
you've
would
given up
say,
all these things?
Honestly, my life now, I would say it's almost like it's way, way better than what I had before. I would say life with Jesus is everything. It says in the Bible that Jesus came to give us life, and not just life, but life that is filled with abundance. He changed me in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 17. Anyone who is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old has passed away, and behold, the new is here. And that's literally what God did to me. He completely changed me. The person you see today, you would never even imagine that I was into smoking and eating that red stuff, or gambling, or into cricket and into Bollywood movies and all those things. Yes, we do watch movies today, but the type of movies we watched at that time were very different than the one which we watch today. So yeah, I would never trade this life for anything else today.
So do you think perhaps the first step into that relationship with Jesus was actually being able to go to an Adventist school?
I would say so. As I said, there were a number of factors to be with those people who were like on that journey, friends, family, school, missionaries who supported and helped, and they lived their life like Christ, that I could see that unconditional love. They helped me. They couldn't gain anything from me. I was poor, rugged boy. But they invested in me so that I could be something. And that all showed me that definitely there has to be someone out there who loves each one of us, who unconditionally loved and sent His Son for us to die for us.
Absolutely worthwhile.
Absolutely. And I would actually, if there is anyone out there listening to this, I would encourage them that try Him out. Because the truth is that when we walk with Him, we're never the same before. And once we have tasted Him, you wouldn't want to have the life that you had before. You would want to have more of Him. And that's my desire now. I want to have more of him. By the way, I'm not perfect. I still have struggles and challenges. When you journey with him, it's almost like up hills and valleys, and there are times when you're down, there are times when you have mountaintop experience. But the good thing is that I'm with him, and it's safe with him.
And that's
Not
what
just
keeps
for
you
now.
going on.
Yeah, and that's what keeps me going. And that safety and assurance is not just for today, but for eternity. And that's the beautiful assurance and hope that keeps me going. And keeps my family going as well, no matter what the circumstances or challenges.
Well, thank you, Younis. It's an awesome story, and I'm sure there's lots more to it that we don't have
Absolutely.
time for today. So
Yes.
if you get the chance, bail him up and ask him about his life a little bit more, because there's so much more to be heard. But today we're going to have to draw it to a close. Let me pray for you.
Thank you.
Father, we thank you so much for this man that you've placed into our lives. We thank you for drawing him from the life that he had and giving him the life that you know he will enjoy and that he will make a difference in others' lives. Father, we thank you for the story today of Younis's life and how he came to have a relationship with you and how he longs to make a difference in other people's lives. We ask your blessing upon him as he continues to walk in your way and bring you glory in his life. In Jesus' name, amen.